it looks like we've already had Tony Spence join. Hopefully he heard a little bit of what I'm saying, so he can also talk about that. But he's gonna join us now to talk about innovating to keep schools open during COVID-19, the pandemic. Hi, Tony.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Good,
Hi.
yeah, same. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Do you want to share screen?
Sure, why don't I do that?
Okay, good. I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put the spotlight on you while we're doing this, by the way. So I'm going to go off camera and mute myself.
Okay.
And then I'll come on with any questions that pop up. And I have a ton of questions always. So if you leave me a little bit of time at the end, that would be awesome. But it's so nice to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Excited to be here. Thank you. And as if we get too close on time or anything, or if we need to wrap up, give me any cues that you think are helpful and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think we're going to be good because right after you is 3 short video showing. So we have time.
Okay,
to go
great.
over. Yeah. I'll let you know when I see your screen.
Okay, hold on a second.
Okay, I see it.
Great.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to let you rock on this, and then like I said, I'll pop on later.
Okay, thank you. Well, hello everybody, and thank you for again a time of both busy schedules and busy times in general. And again, I'm Tony Spence. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the Muskego-Norway School District, and we have a lot to be thankful for in this time, but also a lot that we've been wanting to share about kind of our status up to this point. Just to kind of give you a quick look back, our district started off this school year in person with pretty much 90%, so 88% of our students electing to go in person, with 12% of our student population going virtual. So that was an option that we offered. And we've been 5 days a week in person since the beginning of the school year. And while that's not necessarily, everybody has their plan or process that worked best for them. It was a bit of a dice roll in terms of how this would have turned out. We couldn't have anticipated all of this. But as we look back, we feel we made a really good decision about representing the needs of the community and also what we could do as a school system. So my job right now is just to kind of give you a little bit of background and detail about those steps that got us there, and kind of the work that we felt was, I guess, so important to make sure that we could pull it off. And I say pull it off not lightly, but there was just so much that happened between, I would say, April of 2020 all the way through a month into the school year of this current school year to make this happen. So I'm not going to read all this to you, but this is our information about our district at a glance. And maybe I'll just give you a quick highlights. And by the way, happy to share this presentation. So if that's helpful in terms of, if you have any questions, you want any information, I'll just feel free to pass this along. But our district's about 4,900 students. It doesn't fluctuate too much. We've been at that number for about 10 years now. While we do have opportunity for expansion, the way we're looking at the census, it's going to be about the same over the next 5 years at least. We do have about 600 employees, and that includes certified staff and support staff. If we include food service and all those, we start to get up into that 800 number. But those are people that are currently on the payroll. We do find ourselves to be a very innovative district. We try to pride ourselves in that. I know that's a common term used by people, so I'm not saying we are holding that to ourselves. And actually, we do really try to stress, we want to be a destination workplace. Yes, it's about students, it's about community. We want people to find this as a great place to work as well. Some highlights to our system: we are a top workplace, and that's something done by the Journal Sentinel. It's just a local newspaper in the Milwaukee area, which we're about 20 minutes outside of. And we also have some other ratings as well: Blue Ribbon, Title I, AP Honor Roll. These aren't anything unique to our school district. I'm sure others do. We do hang our hat on some quality sporting events and options for our students as well when it comes to co-curriculars. 3 times, 3 years in a row, state football champion, something we're very proud of there too. Here's a look at Fast Facts. This is just a kind of like at a glance, what do you find happening in our district in and around student performance and also district performance? So, well, again, I'm not going to probably drive too much into this. We are proud of what happens in our system. We are trying to continuously improve and be better. We never want to stand still. And that starts from the strategic plan that we take a lot of pride in, all the way down to the very individual student in each classroom. By the way, all this information is on our website too. So if it's not in our information here on the presentation, it's actually on the website. But one thing I do want to point out actually is staff engagement. We actually feel the only way we can have expectations for our staff to create change within themselves, within their classrooms, within schools, is that we have a formal process for that. And so we take a lot of time and a lot of pride and a lot of energy to really work on engagement as a process, not just something random. So when we look at that 90% percentile rank that's here in the middle, we actually feel that that is a very relevant mark. And I know it seems like maybe a footnote, but for us in the scheme of things, it's very important and relevant. So like many of you, you were faced with a new challenge in March of 2020, and that was to essentially deal with what was a tidal wave of things to come. And while no one could have anticipated that, I remember sitting around with the other fellow members of my cabinet. My wife's a nurse. She said, "Hey, the hospitals are talking about this and maybe you should too." And so was that in early February, I think? And I said, okay, great. So mentioned it in one of our cabinet meetings. And I think we kind of looked around at each other like, well, I guess we better start. And just like that, things started to begin on our planning of like, how is this going to affect schools? Of course, no one could have predicted what really happened. What our challenge, like everybody else's, was we were closed down by the governor on March 13th. I think that was a magic date for many systems. And from that point on, we went into a full virtual environment. And how did we shift to that? Well, we did feel that it was you kind of make do with what you have, even though we felt we had a lot of great resources, but nothing could have fully prepared us for what that was. So in the same time, we used all people, all teams administratively, every single employee group to start this planning process. And like I said, as soon as we were closing down, we were already planning like what's ahead, because we started to think about, are we going to do this for the rest of the school year? Are we going to be doing this in the summer? Are we going to be doing this in the following school year? And again, I'm sure everyone else started to think about that too. Now, the interesting part is that we don't have, we have a very specific process for continuity and contingency planning. And we've been working on that for a long time. So we felt that there wasn't a gap area for us, but it could never have prepared us for this. So even though I start to talk about some of the things that we do in the background, a lot of this was created in the moment. And so I'd love to say like, oh yeah, we had it all set up and it was ready to go. No, that was by no means the case. So one last thing on the outcome is our 4K through 12 schools were allowed to open with 88% choosing in-person attendance. I'll talk a little bit about how we came to that information, because we really didn't know what the community wanted. We had a general idea based on some of the pings from social media and some of that informal opportunities to chat with families. But until we surveyed, we didn't have the hard data. So the clock was ticking. And what we needed to do was create a survey that we could ask all families what their intentions were in terms of, did they want to send their children to school? Were they unsure about it? Or were they intending to do something alternative? We didn't want to lose families, because I think we all know what's at stake. If we can't provide the opportunities that the families want, they might look for that elsewhere. And so we didn't want to be seeing students walking out the door for obvious reasons. So here we have on the second paragraph, we did a completely digitized survey. We use a program called Qualtrics. And like many others who've used Google Form in the past, it's similar to that, but it's a little more advanced in terms of the logic that we could do. And we created a entire directory of all of our families and then sent this survey out using that directory. And we asked, again, several questions about comfort level, mitigation requirements, whether they would ride the bus, and whether they would do in-person or virtual based on that. And also what kind of needs were around internet access as well, because that's a big part of it. So you can imagine in my role as the Chief Information Officer, having a finger on the pulse of internet access and technology access was a big deal too. So this is just a snapshot of one of our survey results. Of course, we put all of our data into dashboards. That's just what we really do. And so here's just a general number of 4,200. So we had 97% of our families respond to the survey, which is probably a new record. Normally, if we get 50%, we're feeling pretty good about that. But this one was about, tell us what you want us to know. And in this case, it was about bus services, it was about learning formats, and et cetera, as I mentioned before. So you might not be able to see this, but I want you to see is kind of the heat map of all this information. And we asked parents to respond about whether they felt that the dark blue, this must be in place as a mitigation measure. I would be more comfortable if it were in place, is that aqua blue. Neutral would be the green. That light green would be, I would be uncomfortable. The orange is, I would not send my children. And then red, I do not believe this measure is necessary. The very first question on top here says, students and staff regularly washing hands with soap and water. So that was the one that most people were agreeable to. This must be in place or I would be more comfortable. Next one was hand sanitizer. The third one down was the school is thoroughly cleaned at least twice a day. And again, some pretty big stats here. And staff had been adequately trained on CDC guidance to reduce the likelihood of COVID-19 transmission. So you can see all the way down the line. Now the bottom three are students will wear face coverings during the school day. I would imagine, like many districts and communities, this had been a polarizing topic. And if you notice, look how much of a spread we have in terms of responses. 15% said I would not send my children if the students will wear face coverings during the school day. So in some cases, we thought, well, that's odd. Do they mean that they would not send their children if there wasn't? In this case, it means they will not send the students or their children if they're required to do face coverings. So that was a big deal. And then ironically, when we were sending the survey out, the governor happened to roll out a face mask mandate requiring it. And then we had all these people changing their responses. So we had to be agile that way. So that was the face coverings. And then the next one says students only interact with those in their classes. So we're not cross-pollinating, if you will. And then childcare is also available. And so that was one that obviously didn't, most people were neutral about, they didn't care. So here are kind of our marching orders. We knew what people were comfortable with. We knew it was going to be polarizing and knew what we could actually step forward with. So our operations director put in a ton of effort to get PPE. We were making our own plexiglass dividers. So we had a bunch of raw materials for which we still have a ton of it in our back warehouse to be able to create more if needed. I'm hoping that's not the case going forward. We had to present this to the board. And here's the interesting part. So I think you're able to see I'm trying to think, is it's presenting the presentation to Reentry Planning. And if you're not seeing, that's okay. I'm not going to go through this other than just to say, this was our presentation to the board on our Reentry Planning. So we went through all of these slides with the board about what we're going to be doing in order to stay open. And we had to get the board's approval that we could do this and pull it off. So you can imagine the amount of content and steps we had to go through: adherence to the county, adherence to the state, adherence to the federal guidelines. Just in our case, trying to keep things to stay safe, to stay open. That's the Waukesha County, that's the county we're in. That's their mantra. And so we adopted that as well. And so everything that we could imagine was put into this document about our marching orders. And the board concurred. They said, you know what? That's what we want to do. We want to go forward with being 5 days a week in person. Now, that sounds great, like, hey, then you're ready to go. The board's supporting you and you're doing it. And we have a very supportive board, but there's so much more work that needed to be done as of July 13th. Once they gave us the nod and the okay that we were ready to proceed, then it meant we had to start coming up with, well, what does the classroom look like during a time of pandemic when we're not really sure what to expect and what people are willing to do? Will kids abide by wearing a face mask? Is this going to be a big issue? Again, these are pretty typical questions. And I think what was happening here was we really felt that, we have a visualization tool that we think is going to make the lives of everyone a little easier to kind of get a glimpse inside the classroom. So we actually worked with a graphic designer and created this visualization tool so you could see things like the hexagonal format for a seating arrangement that's supposed to give us that distancing that we're talking about. We talked about hand sanitizing stations and where they're going to be located, and hand washing stations, and how plexiglass dividers would be used for both students and staff. So there's really a lot packed in here about mitigation. Did this mean that everyone slept better at night? Absolutely not. But when it came time to show people what the expectation was, what this would look like, we do felt that this kind of eased tensions a little bit. We ended up sharing this with other districts across the country, mi casa su casa. So, go ahead and take this and make it your own. And so we've seen this visual pop up in quite a few different places, even though it originated with one of our own graphic designers, which we're very proud of, but at the same time happy it could be used with other systems. Well, when it comes down to it, not much of this matters unless kids are learning. And so our curriculum directors, we have two, one for middle or elementary, and then one for upper, which is the middle and high school. And they created learning plans, which are linked in here, that basically show everything you can imagine about the learning process, what's established, what our curriculum will be within this format, and then how to get there. So that whether you're in a fourth grade classroom in Lakeview Elementary or a fourth grade classroom in Mill Valley Elementary, that you'll have the same experience and exposure. Now, keep in mind that those that picked the virtual option, the elementaries were all consolidated. We had one school, our largest elementary school called Bay Lane Elementary, and there's 1 to 2 teachers per grade level that did the virtual instruction for all of those students. So they were full-time virtual from home, and the teacher could work from home or from school. And then our middle school would do the same, but it wasn't as many teachers for that. They were more like a support structure around that. And then also the high school was a full virtual program separate. So we use none of our own teachers for the high school program. But anyway, all of our plans are linked in here. So if you were in this presentation, you click on any one of these, it would take you to those learning plans. Okay, another thing, couldn't be a presentation without a little bit of shout out to the technology. We felt that we prepared ourselves for this. We had a one-to-one program 5th through 12th grade using Chromebooks. We had one-to-one availability of devices for our 4K through 4th grade, which is our elementary school. And we use our Epson boards, which have been great for us. They have a bright, beautiful screen. There's a lot of windows in all of our schools. And even with the windows open and the lights on, you still can have a 100-inch screen on a very high level with laser projection. And why am I telling you that? Because a lot of the instruction still happening in the classroom, we use doc cams, and often they would point them at the boards, and then that would allow that instruction to stream for students who were on quarantine or that were, for whatever reason, not available to be attending in person. So this is just a setup of our 4K teacher, Jess, on the left here. Just shows kind of the advanced setup that she used to be able to project both on the board to her students remotely, and she had multiple devices to do that. A very talented individual, and if you think about it, that's a 4K classroom. That's a lot of technology for 4K, but again, it's worked out. Has it been a lot of work for staff? Absolutely. Another piece that we feel is crucial to this, we did a frequently asked questions. Why is that important? If anybody had a question, where do you go? And you might say, yeah, you're going to send me to the underbelly of your text that's just randomly out there. We update this every week. And so because of that, we felt very strongly that if we send someone to a part of our frequently asked questions, you're going to get all your questions answered there. And if you have questions, come back to us. But this is a great way for everyone to get consistent information. This document's probably 30 pages of text. So it took a long time to pull this together. But now that we update it on a regular basis, it's a lot less maintenance overall. One of the things that we really had a hard time with was the demand of staff and community to make sure that we were sharing data about the results happening both in the schools and around the community. And so we have a dashboard with over 40 different fields of data on it that's updated daily by one of our programmers. And I can't show that to you because that's internal, but here are just a few snapshots of what's in that dashboard. We tracked everything by county, by state, by tract within the district, and then also within the schools, and then also staff and student attendance, and then how many cases for quarantine and how many for isolation. And so this is just an example of the trend that we're seeing. Obviously, for I think most parts of the country are seeing this, but the Midwest especially is that drop, particularly since November. But when we went a day without updating, whether it was the county that couldn't give us the data or there were delays, We'd have people writing emails, making phone calls. Where is this information? I think a lot of people were concerned that we might be hiding something or that we weren't being transparent. So we definitely had to have the data out there on a regular basis and even put something out to families and even to staff if something wasn't updated and a full rationale for why. So it's been a lot of work, but we actually have a data metric team that we were meeting every day of the week to review this. And now with some of the data being a little more friendly, we've been actually meeting 3 times a week to review that. We have members of our cabinet, of our health team, and then also we have our school board president to join us as well. So everybody's on the same page with that. This is just an example of a outward facing dashboard. I can't say it's very pretty, but it does the job. This is actually, again, through Qualtrics, and this is just 1/3 of the public transparency of dashboards that we use with it. And all you're seeing is staff and students, and then that quarantine and isolation count. And of course, this is as of today. These numbers are pretty low overall, but there's just been a slight uptick in the past few days. One of the things that we wanted to do is we saw the exhaustion. We saw people were kind of getting wound down a little bit, and we wanted to change it up. And so in order to do that, we actually created a 100-day video. And so this was about a month ago that we rolled this out. And we used something called Cameo. And Cameo is a website where you can get celebrities to pretty much say whatever you want them to say. So we wrote scripts for every single person. So I worked with our marketing and communication specialist and also our operations director. And we wrote the scripts for all of these individuals, and then also had our school board president, the mayor, and then also our superintendent speak to our staff as well. So each one of these people speaks to a separate employee group within our organization about thanking them to making it to 100 days. So some of these people you may recognize, some of those you may not, but certainly one that I was excited to see was Steve Wozniak. He's co-founder of Apple. So that was pretty cool. And, again, a nice way to say thank you for helping us open Muskego-Norway Schools and keep them open. We've kind of had to switch gears a little bit, and I'll be close to the end here, but how did we keep open was that we had surgical precision when it came to contact tracing. Our district nurse has been working, I think, 24/7. I mean, it's pretty close to that. I'm thankful she's still alive. She's a wonderful person. She's got a great team, but they have had to work seemingly endless hours to stay on top of the number of people who are contact traces, who are positives, et cetera. And so the number of processes we've had to add to our district is just incredible. But more importantly, the work of our district office has been huge to support that. But alongside that, the district nurse and her team. And then last but not least, we've really had to switch over to vaccinations. This is just a snapshot of our recent dashboard. And this just kind of shows that out of 622 employees, we surveyed them to ask not by name, but just who was interested. And then also those who were interested were able to sign up for multiple opportunities. And so overall, of the people that were interested, we've had the ability to offer 95% of those an opportunity for vaccination. So we've strategically tracked that because we wanted to be as forward and give as many opportunities as possible. And there are many reasons why, and this is for in-person and virtual staff. But the reason why this might be 21.7 isn't that we had that many people that necessarily didn't want the vaccine. Many people went out on their own to get it. So they went on the Walgreens website, walked in the door, got their own vaccination, and they said, I'm good. Or we've had some expecting mothers who, as an example, have declined just until further instruction was given or confidence in that. There's just a few examples of how we walked through a process for vaccination. And so now we can kind of take a little breather because I feel like at 95%, that's most of our staff who are looking. All right, so I try to be as time friendly as possible. I hope I got through that in a period of time. And if you have any questions or thoughts, please let me know.
Okay, I'm back. So that's awesome. It's good to see how organized you were. What happened on the tech side too? You want to comment on that?
Well, what happened is we felt like we've always done PD well. We have enough resources in our district with one-to-one and those things. Mm-hmm. We have classrooms set up well, and we felt like, hey, we're good. But you know what? No matter how well you prepare for that, we couldn't prepare for ourselves to say, all right, if I'm a teacher and I've got 5 students who are home,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in the classroom, and I need to make sure the students in the classroom are getting the instruction while at the same time the students at home are getting the instruction. And how can we use this? We spent a whole month testing different scenarios. Will the speakerphone on the phone work? Do we need doc cams? Do we need webcams? Or webcams are sold out. How are we going to get this? Doc cams are hard to find. Chipsets aren't being created. And then Google Meet. So we had the free version, and then the new version was going to come through. But you had to pay for the enterprise level to get that. Okay, what is that going to cost? What is it going to look like? How can we shop for it? And we just felt ourselves not necessarily scrambling, but there's just some decisions we didn't have as much confidence in until we started to implement, which nobody wants to do it that way. They want to be like, hey, I want to be able to test this first, hear from other people. I think we're all rolling together on that.
Yeah, it was chaos for a while. We're finally having some of the superintendents across America say they feel like they're a little bit like their head is above water right now.
Yes,
Maybe.
right. Ground zero.
Yeah, like I'm back to like maybe being calm like 10 minutes a day. So,
right.
So proud of you. This was awesome. You have some of the better numbers in terms of returning students and ones that will go back on campus that I've seen.
Right. We're actually up to about 91% now for those who are attending in person. And of course, as you would imagine, as those numbers have started to reduce, there's more confidence in the fact that maybe school is an okay place to be.
Yeah. And so, like I said, you have some of the better numbers. The average is 20% not returning and 35% not showing up online when they were remote. So you have better numbers. It might have really been a lot to do with where you were at stature wise in terms of like how many devices you already had in play. People were pretty familiar with that. The schools that joined later, they were manning the phones, everyone, to help everybody figure out how to turn on the machine, how to log in. That was really hard. Yeah. So
our tech department, and sorry to interrupt, our tech department, so our technicians who are boots on the ground within each of the buildings, they kind of switched over from this help desk mindset, enter a ticket, and they go. Of course, they would do walkthroughs, great relationships with our staff, to having to support remotely. And that was kind of a new concept in terms of many of the questions were coming from my home internet's not working with my Chromebook that the school district has provided me. And what part is getting blocked? Is it something that's happening on my end or your end? And how is this happening? And then the teacher's saying, well, what is it what's not coming through? I'm doing everything I can. And so it was this new layer of troubleshooting that we've not really had to contend with, at least not on a massive scale, because it'd be one thing to help a handful of students. It's another thing to help 150 students that all have all of a sudden similar questions or something of a similar matter.
Yeah. So wild moment for the IT people. That's probably not going to be over anytime soon either.
No, I don't think so. And actually, we're trying to think about how to get rid of some of the bad habits that came with the pandemic. My bad habit is going out to eat too often, or getting takeout more often than I should. Some of the bad habits here in the district are, how are we getting people back to the mindset of, let's not communicate after work hours for everybody all the time, because it seemed like that kind of was the door that opened up. And then also, how do we get people back on track with, if they do have a question, to kind of get back into our help desk system, which we have a very low response time, single digit hours for response time for anything that we do, and get people back into that mindset as opposed to picking up the phone or doing a chat, because it was a survival mode for at first. And so we're trying to it's like inviting people back when you're in the hot tub and they say, hey, get in the pool, it's colder water. Like, no, we're comfortable here. So we want to get that movement back to where we were.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, thank you for being with us today and sharing. Super excited to have Wisconsin on. We've got a superintendent coming up in another half an hour also from Wisconsin.
Yeah, Joe's incredible. You're going to love him. So I'm glad I went before him and not after him. So.
Well, good. Well, thank you for sharing. We're excited to have you. I don't see any questions popping up, but this recording will be coming out for everyone to see nationally in about a week. We're still catching up on, we're doing an event a week right now all over the country. So
that's really great.
We're playing catch up time on all the editing. But thank you so much, Tony. Really appreciate you and all of your people and everything you're doing there. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you. Great to see you. Have a great rest of the day.
All right.
FEV Tutor offers live, one-to-one online tutoring programs that are built to become a natural extension of classroom teachers and core learning environments. Our research and evidence-based models are designed to accelerate learning outcomes for any student, focusing on special student populations while catalyzing overall school and district improvement. We know this school year is unlike any other, but whether your school is hybrid, fully remote, or in person, FEV Tutor has over 10 years experience working in any ecosystem. We can quickly customize a program to fit your students' needs, and our flexible model allows us to pivot and adapt to any changes as needed. If you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'd be interested to hear about your challenges or goals and share what other schools and districts are doing to help their teachers, students, and families. And I'd be happy to tell you about some helpful COVID-19 resources that we recently created in collaboration with our district partners, like the FEV Tutor COVID-19 report. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to connecting.